So in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that a lot of beginner and intermediate guitarists struggle with, and that is left-hand muting. If you aren't familiar with those kind of fancy words in terms of guitar technique, what that kind of refers to is that, sometimes you're maybe playing a chord and you get ugly strings ringing out, or you get a bunch of buzz, or you get unwanted strings kind of ringing out. So I'm going to look at a bunch of different examples of how you can apply this and kind of what I do to minimize noise, because I know it's something that you guys struggle with a lot, and this is a video that was actually requested by one of my viewers. So stay tuned and let's dive into what we can do about left-hand muting. So left-hand muting, one of the most common ones that I find people have issues with is once we start getting into bar chords. We figure out these ones that are all 6 strings, and those are pretty easy because all of them are supposed to ring out. But one thing that tends to happen is, say we're doing the bar chord equivalents on the bottom 5 strings. So my root is on the A string. Let's say I'm playing this D shape. So I've got 5, 7, 7, 7, 5, and no note on my low E string. Common thing that happens is, one, we either bar too far and we get this, or we're throwing the 5th fret of the E string into the mix, which actually does work with the chord, but it turns this D major into a D over A, which is not what we were going for when we initially grabbed this chord. And then the other problem is sometimes we get this. I'm not really getting the harmonics, not really ringing out, but we'll get a bunch of weird harmonics ringing out because our fingers we're muting directly over the fret, and that's making it do weird things. And so my trick for this is I tend to, I'll see if I can get this on camera, but rather than muting from above the string as much, I'm almost thinking like I'm pushing into it from the side. That's kind of my goal for that. And the reason that is you get less harmonic overtones, you don't get any of those kinds of sounds, and you kill the string, and there's also no risk of you pressing down on it accidentally. So when I'm playing these bar chords, it's almost like I'm pushing lightly into that with my finger, and I find that really helps shrink the muting there. Now, say we're doing a chord like two common open chords that tend to ring out for people are, say we're doing a C chord or an F chord. Now, when I do this C chord, my thumb's often hanging out up here, but I'm doing actually the exact same thing, but I'm doing it with my ring finger. So if you look at my left hand, and I'll hold this up, hopefully this is a good view for you. I can't really see myself anymore. But this C chord here, what I'm doing, my ring finger is actually reaching slightly beyond the A string, and it's making contact again with the side of the E string. So that E string, I can strum as hard as I like, and I'm not going to get any real sound out of that E string, which is wonderful. Now, if I did an F chord, this one's kind of a twofold process. So this is the 3rd fret of the D string, 2nd fret of the G string, 1st fret of the B and E strings. This is a hybrid of what I did before. So it's same as the C chord. I'm reaching a little bit over so that the 3rd fret of my, or not the 3rd fret, but my A string can't ring out, and I'm pulling my thumb over to cover the E string. So again, I can strum as much as I want, and I'm not going to make any unwanted noise with those 2 strings. This applies to pretty much any, like A minor, because that has an open string. I have my thumb wrapped over. I don't really have a good muting strategy for D, evidently. Now that I've done this, I just try to, I guess, pick as accurately as possible. But those are some really common instances where I see a lot of my students who come to me maybe have some issues with muting. And then secondly, let's take a look at if we were playing say you're not a beginner struggling with these bar chords anymore, but you're going into triads up and down the neck and you're running into all kinds of different muting issues, which again is a very common problem to have. But let's say we're playing some triads on the D, G, and B strings. So this is actually where things get, well, I mean, I say that they get easier, but maybe they don't. Yeah, I'll try my hardest to go back to being first coming to grips with these chords. But there's a couple different things that I do to make these ring out super smooth. So say I was playing just a simple C, F, G progression. So 1, 4, 5 in the key of C. So this, and actually that was good, I actually hit that A string. So even us pros sometimes hit some unwanted ringers. But here, I'm basically treating it like the F chord, where I'm pushing my ring finger into the side of the string. I have my thumb covering the E string here, and then this is the thing that some people miss. A lot of the time we'll get this kind of sound, which on a C chord, having this open E string ring out isn't bad. It works on, well actually this works in most of the key, although this a little gnarly. But what I'm doing here is rather than having my finger, ironically we want to be bad guitar students, and rather than having my finger perfectly arched like this, I'm actually just being lazy with it and letting my pointer finger touch that E string. So again, what's happening here is I've got my ring finger touching the A string so that it can't make any noise. So we're covered there, and then I've got my pointer finger, and even when I do, like, say this F chord, I'm doing exactly the same thing. It's my pointer finger up here that's muting this E string. Same on the G. And this is how we kind of go about cutting out all of those unwanted rings, because they're really easy to kind of come across. And basically, whenever you go for a chord, so say you're learning a new chord, and you find that you're getting either an open string ringing out or you're hitting extra frets, use these kinds of, I think there's basically 3 basic methods of muting there that I showed you that are going to help you shrink out, get rid of that unwanted ringing, because it is really annoying and we do struggle with it. So if you find a chord and you find that notes are ringing out, just run through those couple little steps and see if you can minimize that. And then lastly, I have one other bonus tip, which is just to make things a little bit cleaner in general, that I find a lot of students aren't totally hip to, is say you're playing something where you want it to be maybe a little bit more rhythmically tight. So I'm going to play you 2 examples and I'll tell you what made the one sound better. So here's my best impression of a beginner intermediate guitarist playing a kind of chord groove. Or the second one sounds so much tighter because I'm using my left hand to kill the chord. So in the first example, I just held down the chord. If you're playing something on one chord where you have a lot of strums and kind of an exciting rhythm, it's going to be super beneficial to you if when you want the chord to die, you just let go. You keep your hand here, but I'm just easing up the pressure. Like I'll try to... So here's beginner intermediate guitarist playing it. And then here's a professional guitarist doing it. So all I'm doing is easing up the pressure on my left hand, and it makes a huge difference on the cleanliness of the way that sounds. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope it helps you out when you're playing through these chords. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It really helps me out more than you could know. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, I have a link to the contact page on my website down below. I'm working with all genres and all levels of students. I've actually been connecting with a bunch of you guys from YouTube lately, and it's been a great joy to connect with people all over the world. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you, so don't hesitate to reach out if that's something you'd be interested in. Last but not least, I got new videos coming out every Monday and every Thursday. I'd love to see you in the next one, and until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.